MLS Aces Podcast, episode 206. This is your host, Tom Sweezy. And if you guys are noticing, this is a little bit of a solo episode going on, but I actually do have a special guest host coming in, a guest coming in live. And whenever you're ready, I'm going to just give me a thumbs up and I can add you in. This is a little bit of a different scene we got going on. This is DannyT from DannyT Radio. Danny, well, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you. We haven't had a chance to officially, meet over video, but big fan of yours, and I am so grateful and so thankful you can come on to this MLS Cup preview episode.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, you can hear me, right? Mic's working.
You're all
Everything
good.
good? Oh, cool, man. Hey, big fan of yours too. I've listened to the podcast for a while, and I'm glad to finally be on this. And I know you kind of just, reached out just a couple minutes ago, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing anything tonight. Let's do it. So glad to be on.
No, and it's been a crazy night. We've had a few co-hosts who normally are on the show, Sam, Vaughn, Jason. Some of them have gotten sick. One of them was going to the Charlotte kit release, and another one had a previous engagement. So it's been a
Pretty
crazy
good kit
night.
though. You've seen
Yeah,
it, right?
it's a little bland, but it's fine for a first kit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
I don't want to.
Usually the boring kits I don't really deal with, but I kind of like the look of this one. It gives me kind of like an Arsenal vibe, so I kind of like it.
Is it going to be the center of a YouTube video soon?
I don't know. Hopefully, I'm going to that first game, so I'll probably buy a jersey when I'm there, and I'll probably be hanging it up.
Very fun, very fun. Well, I'll give you the floor first. To obviously give a plug to your YouTube channel. I think if you're watching this live, or if you're watching this, later on, or listening to the podcast, whatever it may be, I think DannyT Radio. But Danny, please go ahead and plug, what you do, who you are, all that stuff.
Yeah. So a couple years ago, I had the plan to start a podcast, but then that plan kind of changed over eventually to starting a YouTube channel. And I was influenced by guys like Flemlo Raps and KTO. They make similar content to me, but they do it NFL style, where they just
Mhm.
kind of tell the stories of some of the players and some of the teams of the NFL. And I thought, man, it would be really cool if I did that with MLS. So, the idea of mini documentaries of the stories of MLS. And, there's some other things mixed in there. I do some, ranking videos, and I've kind of been talking more current events of, recently. But yeah, it really did all start with just, the short mini documentaries. And I think that's kind of the meat and potatoes of my channel. So it's just the YouTube channel, and I do have Twitter at DannyT Radio. Those are really the only two socials that I use. And yeah, I'm having fun. I wanted to have a video done by tomorrow. It's probably going to get pushed off until Saturday, but we'll see. It might be up late tonight.
It's the typical, you do everything by yourself type of thing. So things get pushed back due to unexpected
Yeah.
life events. Completely understand. Completely understand. But now, Danny, honestly, again, huge fan. Glad you could come on. Glad we could talk a little MLS Cup. I know I didn't give you much context into anything of what we're talking about. Obviously, we're talking a little MLS Cup. But I guess, do you have any thoughts on MLS Next Pro? If you want to chat about that for 5 minutes, if you have any thoughts on it. If not, we can hold off.
Yeah, and I tweeted about this. I think it's funny that so many people are getting so up in arms about this,
Yes.
because everyone was mad about the MLS 2 teams in USL. And
Yep.
personally, I didn't like them. I mean, I kind of thought it delegitimized the league. It felt weird to watch, Louisville take on Atlanta 2. Like, you just can't get as excited for that. Okay, so everyone's mad about that. So we'll take out all those MLS 2 teams and move them to our own league. And no, now this is us. Now this is MLS trying to crush USL. And it's like, no, I don't see it like that really at all. I think this is, MLS creating, and I know they're not saying it's a reserve league. It's kind of a reserve league. That's how I see it. I think this is going to be good for USL. I think this is going to legitimize them more as a league, because when you look at the attendance numbers of USL, they have some pretty good markets there. But then when you look at the bottom of the list, it was all the MLS2 teams, which makes total sense because, you're going to want to see the first team. You're probably not going to want to see the reserve team as much. So I think it helps out USL. I don't think it's bad for the soccer landscape in this country. I know everyone wants promotion relegation, but as of right now for MLS, that's not on the table. I know there's been some talks with USL Championship and USL 1. I still think that's
Mm-hmm.
probably a couple years away, but
Mm-hmm.
I think this is good for the overall landscape of soccer in this country. And hopefully we see more stories like Ricardo Pepi and Caden Clark, the guys starting off in MLS 2 and then moving to the first team and then moving to Europe eventually.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think there's a lot of different, I guess, takes you can throw on this. And just for any listeners who don't know what the MLS Next Pro is and everything that got announced this week, it is the officially sanctioned professional third division league that MLS is now rolling out. A bunch of MLS2 teams, Danny, like you alluded to, are going to be playing in the MLS Next Pro. I keep on wanting to call it MLS Next Plus. Don't know why, but it just keeps on rolling off the tongue. And then also, the addition of some independent clubs are apparently going to be joining. Right now, only one with Jamie Vardy's Rochester, New York FC United. I'm not really sure what the name of it is.
Awkward
Yeah,
name. They should have just kept the
it's
Rhinos.
yeah. Then come on, it's the Rhinos. But yes. So the league is going to begin in 2022 with an initial 21 teams, a bunch of MLS2 teams that we know from the USL landscape, and then 8 more teams are gonna join in 2023. But it's interesting, right? I'm a USL fan. I'm actually a US soccer fan in general, right? So I want to see USL succeed. I want to see MLS succeed. I really have kind of no thoughts about NISA, but they're just there in my brain. But you know, I think this is going to be a good thing for MLS in the fact that they're getting to control, I guess, how their two teams are playing because USL did have a lot of power and control over that, and I know there was a lot of butting of heads there. I don't want to see this league turn into a bunch of 16 to 20-year-old kids playing 16 to 20-year-old kids, though. I did like the aspect from the MLS side of things that these teenagers, youngsters, whatever it may be, are going up against adults or guys who have played over 100 games in their career, whatever it may be, in the USL Championship or USL League One, whatever it may be. So I do hope that with the inclusion of maybe some more independent teams like this Rochester side, maybe we get some, I guess, full on adults like 30-year-olds just battle testing these kids a little bit. But I mean, on the flip side of that, for the USL side of things, I do agree with you. I think it legitimizes the championship in League One even more. These are independent clubs playing in an independent league, and now you get to see these attendance numbers rise. You're not going to have a Passover week when Phoenix goes up to face Tacoma Defiance for a game and they win 4-0, right? So maybe it increases the overall talent level within the league now that everyone's a little bit closer in talent, and you don't have one of these Passover weeks with an SKC2 or whatever it may be. But it'll be interesting. Definitely more information is going to come out, but that's not the crux of this episode. That's not the main focus of this episode. This is an MLS Cup preview episode, and really, I guess I want to quickly look at the conference final games. That Portland Timbers game against the RSL, I think, was a little bit of a wash, a little bit of a letdown to me personally, for a conference final, for a semifinal, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, Timbers go out at home, win 2-0. It was a really poor time for Aaron Herrera to probably have his worst game of the season. But I guess your overall takes, we'll start super high level with this, your overall takes from that matchup and the result.
Yeah, well, you brought it up, Aaron Herrera, and rough postseason for him because the game before he also had the PK against SKC, and
Yeah.
that one was probably avoidable too. And that first giveaway to that goal, it was like a
Yeah.
forehead
You
moment,
felt
like
his pain. Yeah.
what's going on? And you know what? Bad time to have that brain fart. That RSL, I think in the preseason, a lot of people picked them to miss the postseason. So Yeah, me too.
Exactly.
You know, however you want to, word it, whatever. It's still an extremely successful season for them. Obviously, David Ochoa is kind of taking the all the headlines, the new
Hmm.
villain of MLS. I love what he's doing, but yeah, I do agree with you that game, it was a bit of a letdown. But when you have all the emotions from those first two games from RSL, first going and beating Seattle in the shootout, and then beating SKC with a last second goal. A lot of times when you have these really highly emotional wins, you come out a little bit flat the next game, even if you don't
Yeah.
think you are, even if you think you're ready to go. And I just think, they ran into a buzzsaw with Portland. Portland's playing really good this postseason. And I thought that, the loss of Blanco, I know he was upgraded to, questionable or probable before the game started, but I thought that was going to play a much bigger role, and it really didn't. I mean, Portland kind of controlled this one, wire to wire. I mean, I know RSL had a few chances here and there, but it just kind of felt like, yeah, this is Portland's night.
Exactly. And I mean, really, I wouldn't say Portland controlled the game, right? But at the end of the day, I wouldn't sit back and say Portland's goals were these dominant goals. It was a
Hmm.
misplay from Herrera that Mora got to just pretty much run
Yeah.
into the net. And then the Santiago Moreno goal, was off the post, off Ochoa's back and into the back of the net. So
Hmm.
it's not like these goals were these amazing build-up goals that finished off, right? But at the end of the day, a little bit of luck also. You need a little bit of luck in a tournament, I guess. That's what the MLS Cup playoffs are, just glorified. Thank you. That's the word. Glorified tournament. And really, just like you said, the Timbers have been hot. The Timbers have been good. I think everyone can look at Felipe Mora. People can look at Sebastian Blanco. People can look at Dairon Asprilla. Whatever you want to look at on this team, to me, the main crux of this team, and we'll dive a little bit more into it when we kind of preview the final, is the defense of this squad right now. They have so many players on defense playing so well. Steve Clark is absolutely having, I think, maybe some of the best stretch forms that he's had in net over his entire MLS career, and it's all building up into now representing the West in MLS Cup. But I guess, is there any other love you want to give to RSL before we dive into the Eastern Conference Final?
Well, not to RSL, but one more point about Portland is
Yeah.
that you mentioned their defense, and yeah, they are really turning it on at the best time of the year. I think they've only given up one goal in the postseason so far. Um,
I
and
think
heading
so.
into the postseason, they were not one of the top defenses in MLS. They were, of all the teams that made the playoffs, they were, kind of middle of the pack or lower the pack. So yeah, their defense is really stepping up this postseason. So I definitely agree with you on that point.
I mean, look, when you have Larry's Mabiala as your tied for leading goal scorer,
Hmm.
that's probably not ideal, but at the end of the day, if the ball's getting in the back of the net, the defense is also stepping up in that kind of way too. But
Yeah.
Claudio Bravo has been great. Even Dario Zuparic last game, I thought was very strong as well. So a lot of big players stepping up defensively for the Timbers. They're going to get a lot of those names that we talked about back for MLS Cup as well. But we'll dive into that in a few minutes. But let's look at the Eastern Conference Final. Philadelphia Union obviously hosted NYCFC, and NYCFC came out with a very non-dominant 2-1 win over a weakened Union side. And for those who do not know this or forgot, whatever it may be, I think it was 1 or 2 days before the game, an injury report list came out, a COVID report list came out with 11 players from the Union on that list. 6 of them were starters from the Eastern Conference semifinal that happened. And all 11 of those players that were on that list were out for the Eastern Conference Final. So obviously, Union fans not happy. I'm sure Union players and coaching staff not happy as well. But I guess let's just start with that. I guess, I'm an NYCFC fan, so even seeing that list, I wasn't happy about it, right? I don't want anyone first of all, I don't want players missing games over COVID or anything like that. That just sucks. That's just something that
Yeah.
it unfortunately is a reality, but it sucks, right? But I don't also want, as an NYCFC fan, to people to be like, oh, they beat a Philadelphia Union 2 side. Like, no, like I want like to go up against the best team. Let's go get that win and let's move forward. But I guess, when you saw that list come out, or you saw the reports coming out, and then eventually when these guys were officially ruled out, what were your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you on all that, and I don't want to make this political at all. That's the last thing I want to
Yeah.
do. But yeah, it is really tough with COVID because everyone has different opinions about it. I think one of the quotes by Jim Curtin, and I could be mistaken about this, but it's like you have, 19,000 fans jammed into the stadium. That's fine, but 10 or 11 players on our team that were too close to each other. That's not okay. It's just it's still a tough situation that we all thought would be figured out within a couple months. Well,
Yeah.
we're on year 2 and people still don't know what to do about handling COVID with players. And I don't think it's going to be any different in 2022. Probably not in 2023. I think this is just the new reality, and it's really a shame that Philadelphia had to go through that, because that's what everyone's going to say. And you pointed it out best. Like, everyone's going to say, oh, they only beat a Philadelphia 2 team. And you know what? Before the game, obviously, when that happened, NYCFC did become the favorites. But my first take on that was, oh, well, now all the pressure is on New York City. Like, if they
Yeah.
lose this, then everyone is going to get on them. Like, you thought the 7-0 Red Wedding was bad. Like, if they lose this one, oh, like, fans will never be able to let them live this down. And sorry, and I know you said that it wasn't a dominant win. I agree with you, but I was still extremely impressed by New York City, because the first 2 games, yeah, they looked absolutely great. And then this next game against Philadelphia, first of all, you can't really scout against half these players that were on the field. You don't know what they're capable of
Yeah.
because no one's
Yeah.
ever watched them before. And Jim Curtin's done a really good job of coaching this system that they got going on in Philadelphia. So even when that happened and that COVID list came out, I knew it was going to still be a tough game for NYCFC. I knew all the pressure was going to be on them. And even though they were outplayed in that, first half especially, I was still really impressed with them, because teams that are able to get outplayed on the road and still pull off a victory, I mean, NYCFC's showed a lot of guts there, and they're probably the one team I'm most impressed with throughout this whole postseason run, and that conference final was just, more of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and again, I'm saying this all out of an NYCFC fan's mouth, so take anything I want to say with for granted there. But I want to say that NYCFC might have had the most difficult run in the playoff. Maybe RSL, but maybe outside of RSL, NYCFC has had the most difficult, I guess, opponents to go up against.
I think you're right about
Obviously,
that.
I mean, look, the Reds in their own right. I think
Hmm.
Philly, obviously, if this was a full strength Philly squad, maybe it's a stronger argument. But I think if there's also any team in the league that I'm going to be worried about some of their academy kids coming up and stepping up, it arguably is going to be Philly, right? Especially with what Jim Curtin has done there. And then Atlanta United in their own right, still had Yosef coming back, Barco, Araujo. Like they were getting a little bit of fire towards the end of the season. So I want to say, this NYCFC run has been super impressive, but to dive a little bit into the game, obviously, like you said, I think especially in that first half, NYCFC got outplayed for sure. The own goal coming in the 63rd minute from Callens, that Casper Shabilko kind of pressured into that, but then 2 minutes later, NYCFC responding with that Maxi Morales goal, and then the 88th minute goal. It really wasn't even something that NYCFC overly created, right? Like Therarensen really just put the pressure on Mbaizo, who was kind of lazily passing it. And overall, I think a strong game from Mbaizo outside of this one moment that ends up costing you the game. And Tyler's Magno puts away the final ball. I mean, it was just a really strong, I think, performance from a lot of backup players as well, because in this game, for people who forgot, Taty Castellanos is out, and NYCFC's been out Tinnerholm and been out Keaton Parks for Keaton Parks most of the playoffs due to injury. So this wasn't a full strength NYCFC squad as well, but a lot of fight. And I mean, again, personally, I'm super pumped. First ever MLS Cup. But it's this NYCFC team, I think, has been overlooked as one of the better ones for the entire season, in my opinion. But I think that this true depth and talent is definitely starting to shine.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up that last point, because before the season started, I talked with Eli Lester this week in MLS, and he asked me like, "Oh, do you think NYCFC is going to make the playoffs?" And it seems silly now.
I remember that.
It seems silly now for a team that made MLS Cup, but I think that was like a legitimate conversation, because heading into the season, a lot of people were thinking like, "Oh, this might be the weakest roster this team has ever had," and not everyone was sold as with Ronnie as the head coach. I mean, after coming with Patrick Vieira and Dome Torrent, and then the comments that were made before the season, he said something along the lines of, "Oh, we have to get better. We don't have the talent to compete for MLS Cup," or something like that. Yep. So I did have them making the playoffs, by the way, but I said they should probably sneak into the playoffs as the 6 or 7 seed. Obviously, Taty Castellanos comes in this year and, has his breakout season, Golden Boot. That definitely helps. But yeah, I do think everyone was overlooking this main core of players that, had made the playoffs, of course, 4 or 5 times before this anyways. But yeah, New York City, this has been a long time coming for them, and I'm happy for them, because their playoff record before this season was really bad, and they're finally stringing together a run, and they made it all the way to the final. So we'll see.
Look, I'm still waiting for the NYCFC crash and burn moment, whether it's Toronto absolutely beating up on us, or Ronald Mazzarita just absolutely taken out. I think it was Richie Larea on the ball. It's just, one, we didn't have apparently really bad luck against Toronto in the playoffs, one, but two, just I'm waiting for that moment. Rodrigo Schlegel, also, you want to throw that one in, but I'm really just hoping it doesn't come, or it doesn't happen, or it happens early enough where this team can get past it. But no, it was an interesting overall game, and I guess really the last thing I want to say about this Eastern Conference Final was directed at people in the mentions in Twitter, right? Really, I guess you should never acknowledge Twitter trolls, Twitter haters, whatever it may be, but people saying that NYCFC fans cannot celebrate if they win MLS Cup, I think is a little bit extreme. Just want to say, Philly fans, totally be pissed off. I would be just as pissed off as you guys are if my team was down.
They're just pissed off at everything, though, even before this game.
Yes. Look, I mean, 100% true, but it's just like, you're allowed to be pissed off. I'd be pissed off. I get it. But you can also acknowledge NYCFC won the game and fans can be happy. NYCFC fans can acknowledge, like myself, it's not the way you want to win the game, but you won the game and you're allowed to be happy. So it's just like, that's just where it's like, okay, like that's a little bit ridiculous. But again, soccer Twitter isn't always the most pleasant place. But I guess, Danny, is there anything else you want to say before we get into talking about MLS Cup?
No, I think we got it all. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. So let's preview the 2021 MLS Cup. The number 4 seeded, the Western Conference number 4 seeded Portland Timbers will be hosting the Eastern Conference number 4 seed NYCFC, obviously out in Providence Park, like I said, in Portland, Oregon. The Timbers, their road to MLS Cup, beating Minnesota 3-1 in the first round, then going on to beating the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, Colorado Rapids, 1-0 on Thanksgiving Day, and then going out, like we said before, beating RSL 2-0 in the third round. NYCFC, we talked about it a little bit, but beating Atlanta United 2-0 in the first round, going into PKs against the Supporter Shield, winning New England Revolution, beating them 5-3 in PKs, and then again going out beating Philly in the Eastern Conference Finals. It has been an absolutely, I think, this season for some reason has felt so much longer to me than others, and I'm sure maybe coming off a COVID year, the players are also feeling it a little bit too, but first thought about this game, whatever it may be on your mind, whether it has nothing to do with tactics, whether it's a storyline, what is the first thing that you're thinking of when you hear Timbers NYCFC 2021 MLS Cup?
How's Blanco feeling? I mean,
Yeah, that's
he's the
fair.
X factor in this one. You know, and I Googled this like right before I came on. Sebastian Blanco, or Portland Timbers record with Sebastian Blanco, Portland Timbers record without Sebastian Blanco. It's like they get 1.9 points a game with him, 0.9 points a game without him. So with him, they're the second best team in the league. They don't quite catch New England, but we can give them a pass on that one.
Not many people will.
Yeah. So and you know what? He didn't feature in the last game, right? He didn't start. So he's probably a little bit more fresh, but coming off a hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries, they're so finicky. There's a lot of times when you feel good and you give it a run out and then it just goes on you like right away. So I don't know what their plan is going to be. Do they want to, give them the whole run, or do they want to like sub them in, 70 minutes in or something? I really have no idea. So he's the one player that I'm, most curious about. And then after that, I think this is, a matchup really of the midfield. I think both midfields are really, really, really close to each other. Obviously Portland's got the Charas, and then with NYC, I just think it's going to be a really great matchup, and I'm watching the midfield in particular. I think that's going to be, the difference in this one.
Let's stick with the Sebastian Blanco point for a moment, because I think it's totally fair, right? A few weeks ago on this podcast, one of the co-hosts, Vaughn Pullman, was telling me that, Portland still has a game winner in Sebastian Blanco. I didn't fully believe it, just because I always had a big question mark about Blanco's just availability with his health. And not that you're not a game winner if you're not on the field, but not being on the field also impacts your team. So at the end of the day, I think I was proven wrong, right? Blanco on the field, like you said, is an absolutely different Portland Timbers team than without him on the field. But if you're Gio Savarese, do you start him, or do you bring him on late? I think you bring him on late. I think Santiago Moreno showed very well enough that he can do some damage in his own right and definitely create. I think you give him the run. You bring Blanco on 60th minute, and you kind of give him half an hour to make the game his own in front of the home fans. But I guess what do you think?
Well, the tough thing about it is, like, if you ask any athlete, hey, how you feeling? I'm good to go. Throw me in from the beginning. I'm ready. And as a coach, you really have to make that judgment call there. And I think I'm with you. I think I don't want to risk them early on. And I think you bring them on as the super sub, as the game changer in this one. But, it's tough. If NYCFC gets on them early, if they score, 1 or 2 goals in that first half,
and
you need to make
maybe
a change.
The 60th minute turns into the 45th,
Yeah. And then, if you're down early, then you're going to be questioning yourself the entire time. Like, oh God, like maybe I needed to play him from the beginning. And if he looks great that second half and doesn't slow down at all, then you're going to be questioning yourself even more.
Yeah.
I think though, hamstrings, they're such a tough injury. They really are. I had them a lot when, I used to run in college, and I had to deal with hamstring injuries. And there, again, like I said, there's just times when you feel great and then they could just go out in an instant. I mean, Josie Altidore, what was it, 2014 World Cup, first match, hamstring, done for the whole tournament. And I'm surprised. I was really surprised when they said, "Oh, he's probable for the for the Western Conference Finals." I didn't really believe it, to be honest. I'm like, no way, give me a break.
I didn't think he was playing.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I think you got to hold him off and use him as a sub for the final.
I think the only other point that kind of maybe influences that point even more, right? Is that Dairon Asprilla is back for the final,
Hmm.
right? He was out with the red card for the Western Conference final. You start Asprilla, you start Moreno, you have Jimmy Chara probably in the middle, right? And you roll that out, and I think that's still a very strong attack overall that you're gonna kind of get running at the NYCFC defense. But yeah, I mean, look, the Sebastian Blanco take is definitely interesting. But the point you also brought up about this kind of being midfield on midfield and Alfredo Morales and James Sands being a very strong kind of lower part of the NYCFC midfield. And Alfredo Morales is having some of his best games I think I've seen him play ever or ever in an NYCFC uniform. Having that kind of go up against, again, the attack of the Portland defense kind of running at him in the back line, but also just Diego Chara in general. And that's kind of where my brain starts off first. You mentioned the midfield. Diego Chara is where my brain immediately jumps to because he has been so good these playoffs. Still at his older age of, I think he's 36 or 38 or however how old he is
I think I
still
heard
one of the
35. I might be wrong, but I think
okay.
35.
Look,
Yeah.
I often just spew very off numbers sometimes, so it's fine. But Diego Chara, I mean, look, he's still fantastic. Defensively, he's still great. He knows I think just the etiquettes of the game when he knows where he's going to grab that yellow or he knows where he's time wasting, but then his distribution's fantastic. I think you need a strong, whether Blanco's out there for 60 minutes, 30 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever. I think Diego Chara might be a bigger key to Portland bringing home a cup at home over Blanco, just because he does so much for them and he's such a leader, especially with Valeri not really starting or being out on the field much. I really think you have to rely on Diego Chara, just in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And the thing about Portland is that they're all a lot of these guys are getting up in age, Blanco
Yeah,
included. And I do kind of think this is for that core group of guys, this is kind of like maybe the last go around for them. They might be
yeah,
playing next season and who knows, maybe they make it back to MLS Cup, but this could be their last run for them. So someone with a lot of experience like Diego Chara, I think he started in both previous MLS Cups. I'll have to look back on that.
I
He's a
think
guy
so.
that's been there and done that. And I'm not sure how much experience really does play a factor in the MLS Cup playoffs. Sometimes you see teams just, be successful right off the bat, and some teams
Yeah.
aren't. But if experience does play a factor, Portland's definitely got it, and they are going to be leaning on Diego Chara a lot for that. So I think that's a really fair point that you brought up there.
I think that's where I get worried about the Timbers is the age of these players, right? You have
Hmm.
Diego Chara in his mid-30s, Blanco's 33, and he's injury prone. Even Mabiala and Zuparic, I think Mabiala might be 35-ish in his own right. Yimi Chara, I think, is 30, 31, something like that. Like there are a lot of older guys on this team that have played a lot of minutes in 2021. I'm not sure if that's going to go out and impact it, but if NYCFC can kind of keep the offensive pedal going where they've been putting pressure on a lot of these defenses in the playoffs. Do you think that start building down and breaking down some of these guys like Amabiala, Zuparic, whatever that may be there?
I'm not sure about that because they did already, they had a 34 game schedule plus, all the playoffs too, and they're
Yeah,
still holding up there. I know, Blanco's a little bit on the mend right now, but
yeah,
I think if the game goes to extra time and deep into extra time, that might make a difference. But, both these teams, they play on small fields as it is. You know, NYCFC with Yankee Field, Portland
yeah.
Timbers with their field. So there's not going to be, how do I say this? It's not going to be as much running as you would do in
Yes,
Colorado with
it's not
that
going to be a
giant.
lot of wide running.
Yeah, there's not going to be as much as that like you do in Colorado. So I do think if the game goes to extra time, because I don't remember the last time Portland's been in extra time, or I don't remember the last time Portland was in a shootout. So maybe if it gets to that point, but for the full 90, it seems like It seems like they've been pretty strong the last couple of years, even despite their age. I think Giovanni Savarese, he's got these guys in good shape.
I think he definitely knows what he's doing, right? And I
Yeah.
think that experience of Savarese also coaching in an MLS Cup before, I think that's definitely gonna be a major impact to this Timbers side. But let's talk NYCFC because I think defensively you have to give them their own credit in their own right, right? Chanot and Callens have been, I think, always a fantastic center back partnership. Tayvon Gray, I think, has been excellent being a right wing back at this point, what it looks like for how much he's getting up into the attack. Omlinson and Therarenson, whoever's playing left back, I think has been great. And it might be bad, but that's really kind of where my brain goes to first when I think about this NYCFC playoff run is just how strong defensively they've been, how much the defenders have been contributing and getting up into the attack. And I mean, for Sean Johnson also not really having one of his best seasons, he's had a very good postseason run. And that's something that I think overall is going to help you win games in the playoffs is if you guys are strong in the back. I mean, I think we have to give them their credit there.
Yeah, Tayvon Gray he's really impressed me this postseason. He was one of the names that I kind of glossed over during the season. And you focus on the two main guys, Callens and with Gray though. I've really been impressed with him these last couple games. I thought he looked great shutting down New England and against Philadelphia as well. So I agree with you on that one. With Sean Johnson, I don't have a ton of faith in him if it goes to a PK shootout. I know he's technically did save Buxa, not technically. He definitely saved Buxa's shot,
Yes.
but he doesn't have a great record in PK shootouts before that. And I thought when that one was going to the shootout, I thought New England has this in the bag, but I was definitely wrong about that one.
100%. I was with you on that.
Yeah, definitely wrong about this one. But Sean Johnson, when he's on, he's on. And he is error prone. He's made, he's capable of making the best saves, but also capable of letting in the worst goals. Well, he hasn't let in the worst goals in a long time. He's on right now, and that's what you need. You need a goalkeeper that is really, really on. And you could say the same thing about Steve Clark because he's only given up one goal, but I don't think that defense has had as much pressure as New York City. I mean, that New England game, it was so chippy, and they were able to really shut them down and not let them get their normal firepower off, if that makes sense. And that game, it was really entertaining, but it wasn't entertaining in the sense of just back and forth shots going a million miles an hour. It was more so just the intensity of it. I'm probably rambling right now, but I thought I've really been impressed with New York City's defense, and especially with Gray.
And look, the New England Revolution game is also a very valid point, right? Like, well, one, I think the fact that NYCFC, many people will say, shut down New England in that game. New England still went on to score 2 goals. It's still just a showcase of how talented New England was this year overall. But the overall fact of how good they have looked, like they didn't really give, again, a weakened Philly side many chances. They didn't give an Atlanta United side many chances. And New England, just being New England, scored 2 goals against them. I really think that they have to have a strong game. Alfredo Morales has, like I said before, has to play well in front of that back line. James Sands, you can definitely tell, is not 100%. I know he has a little bit, I think, of a hamstring thing going on as well. So I think he needs to, I think the medical team needs to work on him as much as possible to get him ready for the final. But I think getting Taty Castellanos back is huge, right? Having the Golden Boot winner on your team in your 11 is definitely key. For as much as I will openly admit as an NYCFC fan that Taty Castellanos will dive and call for calls and want every single call in the book, he still knows how to get the ball in the back of the net, even if it is the most unconventional way possible. Getting him back, even though a Bear was back last game, and that was fantastic to see. It wasn't the same Bear that we saw from 2 years ago. So I am so pumped for Taty in this final, and I really hope he can make his mark overall across the league in this final and really maybe be the catalyst to get NYCFC to their first ever trophy, right, in an MLS Cup.
Yeah, and that Revolution game was like the perfect picture of Taty Castellanos. He missed some sitters. He asked for a lot of calls. He got the crucial goal that they needed, and he got some yellow.
And they got the red.
And he got some yellow. Yeah, and he got the red. Like that just sums him up perfectly. Like, yeah, he'll get a lot of chances. He'll miss some easy ones, but he'll also score that one goal that you really, really need. And I think he is going to be huge for NYCFC in this final. He has to be if they've got a shot in this one.
So I don't want to keep you too long, Danny, and I appreciate your time tonight. So really what I want to finish up this episode with is, I guess, do you want to give an official take on the podcast? You don't have to. I can definitely run through some of the takes that the boys gave me that they want me to announce on the show.
I'm picking Portland.
No pressure. It is no pressure.
I'm picking Portland in this one. Home teams. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
No, it's all valid. It's all valid.
Oh yeah. Home teams, I think, have only lost twice since the higher seeded team has hosted the final. That being Columbus and Toronto, and Portland. With the Timbers Army behind them, I really do think that's going to be a huge factor in this one. It's a long trip for NYCFC. They've had some highly, highly emotional games. I know I've already said this before, but when you play really emotional games, sometimes you can come out a little bit flat, even potentially in a final. And I think Portland and NYCFC, I think it's a really, really even matchup. Again, I'm watching the midfield in this one. I'm watching to see if Sebastian Blanco comes in this one. I think we're going to see goals, and I think Portland is going to pull it off. I'm going to say, and I know this is such a generic scoreline, but I'm going to say 2-1 Portland.
Got it. Yeah, look, it's 100%. My realistic side of my brain is 100% saying like Portland wins this game. Like it's just like everything I feel like is leading up to Portland winning it. And for the regular MLS Aces podcast listeners, obviously Timber Jason Vivang, he's leaning with the trees out there out west as well. But just for myself, I have to give my pick of NYCFC winning this, and I think the reason why I'm going to go with is that everyone, even the neutrals, want to see Ronnie Dyla strip after NYC raises MLS Cup. He stripped out in Europe whenever they won trophies and cups, and we want to see it as fans within Major League Soccer. But no, seriously, I think that Maxi Morales is almost having a Diego Valeri-esque run where he wants to kind of put his legacy and his stamp on NYCFC. Obviously, Maxi's been with the club for a while now. He's had, some of the best seasons of any player in an NYCFC uniform. And he's come out with statements saying this is a magical team. This is going to be a magical run for us. And I think his play along with Taty, maybe along with a Bear coming off the bench now that we know he's fully healthy, and just the sheer depth. And I think the fight that a lot of these guys have. Obviously, I follow a lot of NYCFC stuff just from my own personal social media pages. And the fact that they're all rallying behind Keaton Parks, and Keaton Parks made the trip out to Portland and he's with the team right now. And, Anton Tinnerholm, who's been out injured for most of the season, like they're rallying around that. And a lot of these guys are stepping up into their places. And we've seen those guys not just step up, but step up and exceed expectations in a Tayvon Gray that we talked about. I really just think this is a perfect mix of veteran leadership, of youngsters, and of just pure MLS talent that every championship team needs, right? Like Sean Johnson is just a pure MLS talent, right? He's never going to exceed MLS, but he is a very good MLS player that every MLS championship team has on their roster. So I really just love the composure of this NYCFC team, how this team was just put together. And I think at the end of the day, this is a fun team. We play fun soccer. We play great in tight spaces. And obviously, we know how to do that at home. And let's just hope, fingers crossed, that we can do that away. But Danny, before we end the episode, I'll give you one more. Go ahead, plug your stuff. Please let people know where they can find you on YouTube and Twitter and everything like that.
Sure. And just one more point about
Go for
all of that. I wish I would have mentioned Maxi Morales too. I feel for leaving him out. I forgot what I was going to say.
Was it Maxi Morales related?
No, it wasn't even. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I do remember. I'm really excited about this MLS Cup final. I really do think these two teams are evenly matched. And I'm like going back through like some of the finals before, 2020, I was way off. I thought Seattle was the better team, and I thought they were going to.
I think everyone thought that just Seattle was going to run it.
Yeah, but 2019, I was pretty darn sure Seattle was going to beat Toronto. 2018, I was pretty sure Atlanta was going to beat Portland. 2017, yeah, I'm pretty sure Toronto. It's been a couple years where there's been like one very, very distinct favorite. And I don't really know if you have that in this one. I mean, the favorite, I think, is Portland because they're hosting this one, but not because they're, miles ahead of NYCFC. So I think in that sense, it's going to be a really entertaining and really great final. Again, for my stuff, DannyT Radio on YouTube and DannyT Radio on Twitter. Pretty simple. I've got a video. It's probably not going to come out tomorrow, or maybe it'll come out like later tomorrow. Basically, it is called The MLS Playoffs Don't Know What They're Doing. And it's just kind of covering all of the different formats of the MLS Cup playoffs over the years, how it started off best of 3, and then it went to 2-leg goal aggregate series, and now it's single leg, and then went to away goals, and then it went. So just covering the history of that, and that's a lot of what my channel is. So
and if you want more MLS Cup playoff talk from Danny, I think the video you dropped, I want to say it was like 2 weeks ago now, about the Toronto Montreal series, I love that video. Like, go and watch it. And honestly, whenever anything kind of like new comes out about the league or anything like that, I always turn to a few people to see like their opinions, their takes, the content they put out around it. And I know YouTube videos are different. It's not just a tweet, right? There's stuff that goes into it. So I always give you a few days before I go and take a look and see what's going on there on your page. But Danny, again, thank you for coming out. If you guys want to follow us, MLS Aces, what we're doing, you guys can go over to MLSAces.com, check out the blogs we're putting out, find out a little bit more about us, the podcast, the show, everything like that. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MLS Aces. And also, just a quick thank you to our sponsor, Soccer 90. If you guys don't know what Soccer 90 is, again, you can find out more about them on our website. But really, at the end of the day, Soccer 90 is your go-to shop and stop for all your soccer needs, right? MLS jerseys, MLS jackets, scarves, hats, whatever you can possibly think of. Also, all clubs around Europe in the Championship, Bundesliga, and so on. And if you guys want to, get yourself a nice little gift this holiday season, get yourself someone a nice gift this holiday season, go over to soccer90.com and you can use promo code MLS Aces for 25% off your entire order. Again, that's promo code MLS Aces, MLS ACES, for 25% off your entire order. Again, get your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it may be, a nice jersey, hat, jacket, sweatpants, whatever, for their favorite team in the United States and all around Europe. Danny, thank you again. I appreciate it. And everyone, enjoy MLS Cup, and we'll be back next week to talk about the damn thing. So thank you guys, and have a great night.
Thank you for having me.